So maybe you could just give us a very quick 1 to 2 minute kind of starter of, how you chose your major, and then also kind of your first job out of college.
I went to a school called Babson, and I went there because my parents had a family business, and the idea was for me to go and study entrepreneurship. I can get back to that because that's a weird thing to say. You study entrepreneurship, so study that, finance, all sorts of fun classes. That was the theory, and then the idea was to graduate and go join the family business and kind of scale that business up. I went to college right as the dot-com boom was starting and also crashing subsequently. And I fell in love with technology. And so when I was in college, we graduated all with basically business degrees. But what I really wanted to do was really focus on technology.
Can you talk about how or why you chose NASA versus Wall Street and this financial capital route?
For me, it was really simple. I wanted to work on something that was going to have, some longevity. I wanted to work on something that wasn't so transient. And I don't say this to sort of act as if I took a moral path or a moral decision. I think there's great work that can be done in finance. I still look at it. I think about that world all day, every day, especially with things like cryptocurrency, et cetera. But I decided to go down a path where, very few people get to go to NASA. Very few people get to work there. A lot of people choose not to because when you're at an institution like NASA, you're getting paid a government salary, right? It's not luxurious. But at the same time, the scope of what you're working on is so different. I mean, you get to work on these projects and these things that are going on another planet, that are working somewhere else so far away. I mean, it feels like science fiction, but it's reality. And to me, I wanted to work on that sort of thing. I've never been really attracted to money. I've always felt that if you work on something that's really, really interesting to you and you get really good at it, that stuff's just going to follow naturally. But for me, it was not the pursuit of money. It wasn't the pursuit of capital. But for me, it was more of the thrill and more of the curiosity, and also the opportunity to join this club of people who had just totally done it before.
So after being at NASA for 2 years, what caused you to shift to MySpace, kind of into the new technology development side?
And the same sort of thing that drew me to NASA, like, I got to be a part of this. It was the same thing, when it feels right. And for those that are just sort of thinking about their career, when you get options in front of you and you're trying to figure out, what do I do, this or that? For me, I've always followed my passion. I've never let the money make a decision for me. I've never let the terms of an offer letter make a decision for me. For me, it's always been about the work. And for me, it was the idea of, I get to work with these cool people breaking new ground in something that I think is going to be huge in 10 to 15 years. Let's go there and let's go make it happen. I'm going to teach you a lesson that I learned, but it took me 20 years of working to realize it. You want to change and get exposed to lots of different things early on in your career before you really hone in on the big thing that you want to do and that you want to commit to.
I was just wondering your thoughts on that of, is it important to find a culture like that where everyone's pushing, or especially earlier in your careers?
I would take a look at the DNA of the leadership team. Who are they? What are the values of the company? What do they stand for? And then once you kind of get through that, is this the right industry for me? So is this a growth industry? I tend to focus less on company, and I tend to focus more on industry. Let me put it into a different set of a phrase. Let's say you are technically smart. Do you want to go work on Google to go optimize someone clicking on ads? Or do you want to go and work on something that's going to go change the world? It may not be the company that's going to change the world, but do you want to go and work in an industry that's going to fundamentally tilt the world? I would take that one, and you should too.
So now moving into your entrepreneurship phase, how did you take the initial leap of faith, leaving all these different companies to make your own startup?
For me, the real catalyst was meeting my co-founder, Julian. He was instrumental in me sort of realizing this vision of what I wanted to do with cybersecurity and application security. And just a fun little thing here, I had left the BBC and I was looking for my next thing. And Julian was at this incubator, this technology company, this technology incubator. And he brought me in, he actually hired me, and we built an amazing rapport, an amazing relationship. And when he told me that he was thinking about leaving, like a month into hiring me, like it's amazing. He hires me, and then 1 month I find out that my boss wants to leave. And we were just determined at some point, either we are both individually going to work at some startups or we are going to go and build something. And he really dug in and saw what it was that I was looking at doing. And he, as much as me taking a chance on him, he took a chance on me. And we really dug in. We loved each other, you know, from the beginning. We sat down together. We wrote a plan of what we thought the business could be, and we started the company. That was it. I mean, he and I both quit our jobs. We moved from the Bay Area back down to Los Angeles, and that was it. The story of Prevoty is born right there. So I wanted to partner with someone who knew the business side extremely well, and someone who I could trust, someone who I knew would have my back. And there's just that chemistry that you feel when you connect with someone. And that's what it was with Julian. And so we met each other, and that was it.
So going back to like entrepreneurship, obviously every startup goes through a hard time. Can you talk about maybe a time that you had to push through even though you didn't know you were going to make it, or any difficult stories you encountered?
I'll take it from the perspective of like when you build a product and you think it's going to be the thing that tilts the world, and it doesn't. What do? And it's just natural instinct to kind of say, no, you're wrong. This is the product that is going to change the world. You just don't know that it is yet. It's about having that humility to take a step back and realizing that, you know what I built isn't quite what the world really needs. Maybe I'm too early. Maybe it's not the right thing. Maybe it doesn't really solve a pain point or a problem that people have. Perseverance is what really, you know, kind of like got this idea of just putting your head down and trying to solve this hard problem. But having a co-founder just made a big, big difference. Because most of the time, like in a startup, when you're going through the entrepreneurial path, it's less about the world that's harming you, and it's more like mental harm that you're inflicting on yourself. Like your enemy isn't here. Your enemy is not out there. And if you can work through that, you're going to be in a good spot.
Can you maybe describe what it's like to raise money as a first-time founder and what that process is like, or any advice you might have to students who are considering starting their company?
And by the way, that's a really important thing. If you're raising money at a small scale or at a large scale, whether it's getting yourself acquired or doing something strategic, it's all about the story. It really is about the story. Because at that size, at that scale, you don't have a product. If you think you have a product, you don't, because you're not at scale yet. But what you do have is a story. What you do have is your own experience. And if you can lay those breadcrumbs out very, very logically, investors are really attracted to that. You know, so I'd say that narrative is really, really important at such an early stage.